adventure. We're going to be creating a meal that can last all week. You can have it for lunch, you can have it for dinner. We're going to be making a pan of cornbread, and to go with that cornbread, we're going to be making a whole big pot of ham and beans. So the first thing that we're going to start with is we're going to make sure that we've preheated our oven to 350 degrees. We also have a rectangle pan that I have put some butter in the bottom of it, and that's all ready to go. And this cornbread is super delicious. You can have it with chili if you want, or anything that you like to have cornbread with. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with all the dry ingredients first. And so the first thing that I'm going to start with is 3 cups of Bisquick. So I'm going to be mixing in this pan. And you just want to level these off the best that you can. So there's 1. There's 2. And 3. So we have 3 cups of Bisquick. We're going to need a 1/2 cup of cornmeal, any kind that you like. Put a 1/2 cup of cornmeal in. The next thing that we're going to add is a whole cup of sugar, and I just use white granulated sugar. And there's 1/2, and there's the other 1/2. And you need 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder. So that's going to be 3 of these, since this is a 1/4 teaspoon. So 1, 2, and 3. Set that right back there. Now we're going to get our whisk, and we're going to whisk all the dry ingredients together. And this really does make a really good, light, fluffy, and with the cup of sugar, a little bit sweet to go with your savory chili or your savory ham and beans. All right, that looks like that's all good and mixed up. And then the next thing that we're going to add to this, I'm just going to go ahead and add it into our mixture bowl here, is we're going to do 3 eggs. 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to add some milk. Now we're going to add 1.5 cups of milk. I use whole milk. There we go. Put the lid back on that, set it aside. Go ahead and add that in. Now you're going to want some softened butter, and you're going to want 3 teaspoons or tablespoons together. And I'm going to go back and get my whisk. And we're just going to start whisking that around until everything is combined together. And then we're going to pour it into our greased pan and pop it in the oven for about 40-45 minutes, depending on how your oven does. You just want to make sure that all of your ingredients are incorporated. Get this all stirred up. Butter all in there. And then once it's all stirred up, we're going to pour it into our pan. And we're just going to pour it into our rectangular dish. take this over to our oven and pop it in. And we'll come back to that when it's done. All right, so now that we've made our cornbread and it's in the oven and it's gonna be baking for about 35-45 minutes, just gonna have to check on it. The other day I had a ham bone and I had a ham hock in the freezer. And so I thawed those out and I put them in a big pot. I covered them with water and I reduced it all down. So I have a nice rich ham broth going for our ham and beans. Another thing that I did was I had a bag of 15 mixed beans and I soaked those overnight. And so these are all ready to be added to the pot too. But before we do add those to the pot, I kind of want to give our ham and beans a little bit of flavoring. And to do that, I just get a skillet. I'm going to hit it with some olive oil. So, and I'm going to add in there a nice big bowl of, you know, the Trinity, the holy Trinity of cooking, which is the onions, the carrots, and the celery. And they call this a mirepoix. And so we're just gonna stick that in there. Got a spatula. I'm gonna make sure everything is coated. And we're going to get the heat going on that. And we're gonna bring everything to a nice heat until all the onions and the celery start to soften up a bit, like so. In the meantime, I'm gonna take my stock pot that I have, and let's see if I can show you. A couple weeks ago I cooked a big ham, and so I saved the bone and all the meat that was around it, and I went ahead and got it out for this dish that we're making today. To our stock pot, because we have so much going in it, we have a whole other pot of beans. We're going to add about 2 of these boxes of chicken broth. And we're going to start bringing all of this up to temperature. Give that a good stir. And I'm going to continue leaving the ham bone in there to cook along with our beans. I'm going to go ahead and grab those beans now. And this is a 15 different beans. You can use whatever kind of beans you want. You can stick with the northern kind. You can buy them already in cans and jars. I wanted to try them out already dry, so that's why I just soaked them overnight for about 8 hours. And now they're ready to add to the pot. So they all go in. Slice them. Something that comes along with that is a seasoning packet. Add in. Here are onions and our celery and our carrots starting to make some noise over here. We'll give those a light stir and turn the heat down a little bit. I'm going to grab a lid so they get a little steamy. Put that on like that. And when those are ready, then we're going to add them to our pot. All right, so I'm going to turn the heat down, take the lid off. Ooh, nice and steamy. And now our celery, onions, and carrots are ready to be added to our big pot of bean soup. I'm just going to put those in. Gives it a little color, gives it a little more flavor. The depth of the flavor just really greatly improves. And so now I'm going to bring this up to a semi-boil, and then once that reaches that point, I'm going to turn it down on low, and I'm going to let this cook for a good 3 or 4 hours. Now I'm going to come back and check on it, and I'm always going to be wanting to add water. I want to keep the level that I have now. So as it cooks, it's going to reduce some, but I want to add that water back in. And remember, we've got a really good base here. We've got the base of the ham hock and the ham and that broth, and then we've added in 2 boxes of the chicken broth. So I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on that, bring that up to temperature. Oops, wrong lid. Bring that up to temperature. Reduce the heat to a simmer or even a very low heat, and it's going to continue cooking, and all those flavors will get together. Now normally what I do is, this is for not tonight for dinner. This is going to be for tomorrow night and the night after. I'm going to be using it to grab for lunches, whatnot, to go with the cornbread. So when everything gets done, I'll put it all together and I'll give you a look-see at how it all turned out. So I took my cornbread out of the oven, and it's a nice golden brown color, and our beans have been cooking for a couple of hours now. So I'm just going to dish a bowl up, and you know, I cut off all the extra ham pieces. So in our ham and beans, you're going to get a nice big helping of beans with some ham sprinkled in there from the ham hocks and the ham bone that I had. And doesn't that just look delicious? And so that's what you're going to be having for dinner. You just cut off a nice big slice of cornbread, butter it up, and you've got a nice satisfying meal on a cold winter's day.